So we will now move on to the final speaker of this second session, and we welcome Lara Mariel Morales from the National Scientific and Technical Research Council, the La Plata Museum, and the National University of La Plata, Argentina, who is going to present nest defense in related Antarctic top predators, links to reproduction and tropic ecology. So hello, Lara, you can share your screen. No, sorry, it's a pre-recorded talk. You can say a few words if you want while I share the screen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for assistance to my talk. I expect you enjoyed it. Hello, everyone. My name is Lara, and I'm going to represent this work entitled Nest Defense in Related Antarctic Top Predators Linked to the Reproduction and Trophic Ecology. To talk about nest defense, I will start by briefly introducing what defense against predator means. In bird species that provide parental care, it is essential to have some kind of defense strategy against potential predators that may approach their nests. Depending on the species, these strategies can differ. Some birds build elaborate nests and prevent predators from accessing them, while others, with more exposed nests, may rely on behavioral strategies such as distraction displays or direct confrontation with the predator. At the individual level, each bird reacts according to its own life history. Each has its own internal gauge that balance across such as age, experience, current body condition, intrinsic motivation to respond in a particular way, or the individual's aggressiveness, what we might call its personality. Along with these individual factors, there are many external variables that influence behavior. One of them is the reproductive stage. Energetically, the investment required to protect eggs is not the same as the investment needed to care for chicks, and their value to the parent also differs. Another factor is whether the partner is present or absent. In species with biparental care, individuals do not behave in the same way when alone as when accompanied by their mates. The number of predators can also affect the decision to confront or flee, as can environmental conditions such as weather, for example, wind intensity, which can influence flight activity. Nest defense can therefore be understood as a trade-off between increasing the reproductive success while minimizing the risk of injury or even death when facing a predator. Moreover, individuals tend to act consistently across different contexts and over time. The way an individual behaves in one situation is often related to how it behaves in another. With this in mind, we can expect that the way an individual defends its nest might be related to its foraging strategy. For instance, if a bird is more active, intense, or aggressive when defending its nest, we may expect it to show a more active or explorative or to be more territorial in defending feeding areas. Considering all of this, we pose three main questions. Are there differences in nest defense responses between related species? Does it have any influence on reproductive success? And is there any relationship with feeding habits? Well, we work with two closely related species, the brown skua and the south polar skua. They are long-lived migratory seabirds, some exceeding 30 years of age, that show biparental care and high site and mate fidelity. During the breeding season, which takes place in the austral summer, these species migrate to the Antarctic continent. The brown skua breeds in the subantarctic island and the Antarctic peninsula, while the South Polar skuas distribute mainly along the continental margins. Their distribution overlap in the northern Antarctic Peninsula, which is where we carry out our work. More specifically, our study site is Potter Peninsula on 25 de Mayo Island in the South Shetlands. This study spanned for 4 breeding seasons from 2021 to 2024, and the number of monitored nests per year was approximately 24 brown skuas and 80 for South Polar skuas, though this varied slightly between years. The most recent season showed a marked decline in the number of individuals due to high mortality and absence from territories as a consequence for the avian influenza outbreak. Regarding feeding habits, both species are top predators, generalists, and scavengers. They potentially feed on the same wide range of prey: penguins, carcasses of birds or mammals, fish, eggs, and chicks of other birds, krill, and marine invertebrates. In our population, brown squid monopolize penguin predation, consuming both eggs and chicks, whereas South Polar skuas mainly scavenge penguins' remains and rely more heavily on marine prey, especially fish. As for our methodology, we conduct natural experiments during early incubation and the first days of chick rearing. We also monitor nests to determine reproductive success and capture adults during incubation to collect blood samples for stable isotope analysis of carbon, which provides an estimate of foraging habitat. To talk about nest defense in skuas, we need to talk about their predators. The main predators of skuas' nest are other skuas. However, it is well known that human approach to the nest elicits the same anti-predator responses. So, our natural experiments consisted of a person approaching the nest at a constant speed until crouching beside it for 1 minute, while the interaction was filmed. We carried out this experiment over the last 3 seasons. During the first season, as a preliminary test, we used a 1-meter stick with a ball in the end to stimulate an approach. Since the birds direct their responses toward the person, regardless of the stick, we decide to simplify the following season using only the person approach. We define and describe a series of mutually exclusive behavioral responses following the sequence in which they occur, reflecting an increase in aggressiveness. The responses range from moving away from the nest to physical attacks on the person. Here we have example of an attack, a broad overflight, and the long call display, which is a typical behavior in this species where they open their wings and vocalize, used both for territorial marking and pair communication. For each recorded individual, we determine its maximum response score, the proportion of time spent in each behavioral category, and counting the number of vocalizations, long call displays, and physical contacts. All these variables were analyzed through a principal coordinates analysis. So, we analyzed 413 videos. The first dimension axis explains 37% of the variance. The variables contributing most for this axis were time spent standing and vocalizing, number of vocalizations, and long call displays. All of these are indications of aggressiveness in this context, so we interpret higher PCOA1 values as higher aggressiveness. We then use this variable as our main behavioral index in further analysis. When comparing species and reproductive stage, we separate the data by experimental type. We found that soft-polar skuas display higher aggressiveness during incubation than brown skuas, whereas brown skuas show a marked increase in aggression when transitioning from incubation to chick rearing. When comparing the two experimental distances, we observe that although the overall patterns are similar, responses were less intense when the person stopped 1 meter from the nest compared to when the person crouched directly beside it. Regarding reproductive success, we monitor a total of 82 brown skuas nests and 229 south polar skuas nests across the 4 seasons. Considering a clutch size of 2 eggs, we categorize success as 0, 1, or 2, depending on the number of eggs hatched or chicks fledged by the end of the season. In terms of hatching success, over 50% of brown skuas nests hatched al menos 1 egg, compared to almost the 40% in south polar skuas. This percentage difference remained consistent when considering fledging success. 22 brown skuas nests produce at least 1 fledgling, compared to 16 in south polar skuas. When relating hatching success to our nest defense index, we observe a slight tendency for higher success with higher aggressiveness. However, in the 1 meter experiment, this relationship was reversed from brown skuas. Regarding feeding habits, carbon isotope values indicate foraging habitat, decreasing from inshore or coastal feeding to more pelagic or offshore feeding, represented by more negative values. We analyzed red blood cells, which reflect feeding over several weeks, and confirmed the expected difference, so polar skuas show more marine isotopic signatures. There was no clear relationship between nest defense and isotopic values. In the first season, both species show a slight decrease in carbon isotope values as aggressiveness increased. When analyzing serum samples available only for the first season, we observed that this trend remained for the south polar skuas, but reversed for the brown skua, where higher aggressiveness was associated with more negative carbon isotope values. To conclude, we found clear differences in nest defense responses between species. The south polar skua exhibit stronger responses than the brown skua during incubation, but this intensity remained almost unchanged during chick rearing. In contrast, brown skua show moderate responses during incubation, but a marked increase, surpassing south polar skua once chick hatches. Thus, brown skua appears to display greater behavioral flexibility than south polar skuas. In terms of response intensity, we observe that the human approach distance determines the strength of the defensive reaction. Closer proximity to the nest elicits more intensive and aggressive responses, even though the behavioral sequences was similar. Regarding reproductive success, both species show a weak but positive association with intensity of nest defense. Considering that brown skua have higher reproductive success, this may be related to their greater behavioral flexibility, which allows them to adjust their responses according to the reproductive context and ultimately achieve higher success. In contrast, south polar skua, which show less flexibility, exhibit lower success rates. Red blood cells integrate dietary information over several weeks, while serum represents only a few days. Since adults were captured early to mid incubation, red blood cells reflect the pre-laying period when birds are not tied to the nest and can forage more freely, dispersing and exploring. In contrast, serum integrates dietary information that temporarily match the period of our behavioral experiments. Therefore, We consider that the relationship between PCOA1 and serum isotopic values may better represent the real link between nest defense and feeding ecology. Looking back, we can see that the most aggressive brown squat tend to forage more at sea, whereas the opposite pattern appears for south polar squads. We are currently waiting for the serum isotope result from the remaining seasons, which will help us to clarify these preliminary findings. That's all for now. I hope I managed to make myself understood, even with my limited English. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
So thank you, Lara, for your presentation. Don't worry, your English was really great. So I will now read some questions from the chat, and you can turn on your camera and mic if you want. So David is asking, in the Antarctic, what threats do the skua nests face from predators? Are there invasive species threatening them? Lara, are you here? Hi.
I'm here.
Did you hear the question, or should I read it again?
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. So David is asking you, in the Antarctic, what threats do the skua nests face from predators? Are there invasive species that are threatening them?
Well, in this area, there are no invasive species. The only threats to the nest are other squads. Squads are nest predators. It's less frequent squad attack an adult squad. Sometimes if is injured, they can kill them and eat them, but in the nest are other squads the threat.
Okay, thank you. So there is another question by Tarun. He's saying, nice talk. Did you check and compare the hatching success between birds subjected to predation experiment and those that were not subjected to the human predation experiment?
Well, we check, we do the experiment in all the nests, and the experiments during the chick rearing are some more or less experiment because the less hatching success. We don't yet have the results of the compare between all the nests in hatching, during hatching success. We don't have this result yet to compare only from the experiments in the incubation. But we will do that.
Okay, that's good. So while we wait for more questions, I have some questions myself.
Yes.
So in the presentation, at some point you present the long call display.
Yes.
And on this video, the two birds are doing it at the same time. So I was wondering if the parents usually do it together.
Yes, this display is very characteristic in this species. They display when a treat approaches the nest, other squads flying, or a person, or maybe penguins or seals too. And it's frequently one adult starts the display and the mate do the same. Yes. And it's frequently to see both of them do it in the same time. It's very precious to see it, actually.
Yeah, it's really nice on the video. It's really impressive. And is it possible that they can do it alone, or usually all the time it's the two?
Yes, they do alone too. Some approach we do was only one adult in the nest, and he do it alone.
Okay.
Sometimes the mate, ¿cómo se dice llega? Arrive in it
Yeah.
and complete the display the two of them.
Okay. But if the two are present, then the two will do it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I have one last question. In the bronze kua, you show that they have higher hatching success. But you also presented before that they were also more aggressive during the child rearing stage. So do you think being aggressive during child rearing is more interesting to have a successful hatching? Do you think there is a correlation?
Well, I think yes, is the difference important. Most from the hatching success is the chick fletching. The difference that I'm more interested because a lot of nests of subpolar skua hatch, but the chick survive only 1-2 days. So the value of hatching success really it's lower if you see.
Yeah,
so I think the flexibility between that difference in between incubate versus chick rearing defense is the most important thing in fletching success.
Okay.
So I think yes, that is a very important difference between the species of skua.
And I have one last question. So you studied these two species in an area where both are present and there is this overlap. And you said earlier that they can compete with each other. Do you think you would have the same results if it was done in an area where they don't overlap? If you study the bronze skua in a site where only bronze skua are found, and you studied the polar south skua in a place where they're only present.
Can you please repeat me the last part of the question?
Yeah. So you studied them in a place where the two species overlap. If you study each species in a site where she's the only one present, do you think you would have the same type of difference?
Okay. We work in 3 places different. In this place is the most overlap between species, and it's very conspicuous the difference in the trophic. From skua feed on penguins, so polar skua feed of fish. In the other area where we work, are more brown skuas than south polar skua that are 4 nests to 7. But there is different because the preys are more available because the penguin colony is huge. So there are different resources that they don't not need to compete as well as it's here.
Yeah, I understand.
And in this area and these different sites, the success is much more than in here.
Yeah.
So maybe another competitions and dynamics that function differently.
Yeah, influence, yes. Okay, so I think we will have to finish this session. So thank you, Lara, for joining us today.